All right, welcome back to the Judicial Proceedings Committee. Today's Wednesday, March 29th, 2023. We're going to start off with voting list number 21, and then we're going to go to voting list 17. Does that make sense?
It's because this was created.
Okay. Got it.
Can't change.
Excellent. Okay. That math makes sense to me. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So is Council Jamie, take your time. I know we're gonna start off here. Are these amendments ready yet? No, not yet. 301 is ready. All right, we're gonna start off with Senate Bill 301.
We're on voting on 21. Favorable. All right.
I'm seconding on. I'm good at it. We passed this bill several times, but good.
Second. Can we do that study that Chris was talking about on this bill? What's that? I'm talking about a study. He said if we're going to continue giving nonprofit the ability to do that, then we need to study it later on. Something we should maybe consider early on next year.
Okay.
During the first couple of days,
Got it. Okay.
how are we going to handle these things? Because they keep coming.
Got it.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So everyone's familiar because we've passed this bill several times before. It's just Senate Bill 301. So it's there's been a motion for favorable. It's been seconded. Is everyone being recorded in the affirmative?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Okay. Senate Bill 301 passes unanimously. All right. Now we'll move on. Jamie, you need a couple seconds. Take your time. Got it. All right. We're going to move on with Senate Bill 817. And I know that we're waiting for an amendment, but the council can explain the bill and then we can move forward.
So Senate Bill 817 requires the governing body of a condominium or cooperative housing corporation to develop a smoking policy if the property is a multifamily dwelling. And there was an amendment that's on its way that would apply the bill's requirements to all multifamily dwellings in the state, as opposed to just condos.
Just to develop so what Senator West.
In front of me, does smoking include marijuana? It
Yeah.
does. Okay, thanks.
So it's so they haven't just developed a policy.
And it excludes cigars and cigarettes. I mean,
it's smoking of any product. I'm just asking. I don't, just asking for people who do. A friend asked me to ask. That's all.
So it just requires them to develop a policy. Okay. And what's the amendment?
And so the amendment applies the bill to all multifamily housings instead of just condos.
would be what? Like,
Rural houses, next door to the town.
I mean, what is it limited to? Are we talking about just areas with common stairwells? Are we talking about row homes, multi-housing? Are we talking about?
So I don't have the amendment in front of me yet, but I would think it would apply to any building or dwelling that has multiple family dwellings in it.
As long as they're attached.
that's a different question. If they're attached, you're bringing in a row home.
That's what I'm saying.
That wouldn't matter, but that's not what he said.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Senator Walker.
I live in one of these homes where they're 2x2s and there's 2 over 2 units and they're designated as condos either by SDAT or by the company that builds them. And so mine is an actual like building of about, let's say 10 homes and that's a multifamily property, but they're condos in it. And it's not like the traditional multifamily building with multiple units inside of it. So it does cover those, but it doesn't cover townhouses. It does not cover townhouses at all.
This bill doesn't.
No.
I think it would cover like, regardless if it was condos or an apartment complex.
With the new amendment, it will cover multifamily houses, apartment complexes, and it defines it as units. If you have a unit of, I think it says 5, or if you have a multifamily unit above says above 5
Multi-family dwelling means a residential building that is a part of a common ownership community with multiple units. Yep.
Fine, right in the statute, for the section. Multi-family,
Means it's on page 2.
right. So page 2 is residential building, part of a common ownership community with multiple dwellings, a common entrance and common areas, including hallways, elevators, and stairs.
Areas also that are multi-housing?
I'm not sure if that would apply. I believe it would, but I can.
I mean, I would,
What was the question? What was the question?
if it would apply to like, what was the multi-housing areas for public housing areas?
If it says the section applies to multifamily dwellings with 4 or more dwelling units.
Would that be considered a cooperative housing corporation?
No,
So
under
that's-
the amendment that the president's office wants, it would apply because I'm only, in this bill, it only deals with common ownership communities, condominiums.
In the
For,
definitions.
correct,
Yeah, so I don't.
No, that's what your amendment's gonna cover.
The amendment will cover those because those are multifamily housing and it only says that the owner has to come up with a policy too, same
If you
process.
check out the fiscal note, it's actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
It's Senator Muse.
I just want a couple questions. One, eventually I see where this can go that could be helpful. Just have a smoking section and a non-smoking section. You can smoke down the street and all those, and you can't smoke up here, then you won't have any of these problems because they're going to continue to arise, especially with, with cannabis, et cetera. The only way you're going to deal with that, this section of these sections of units are smoking, these sections are non-smoking, and you take your choice. But having said that, any ideas to what kinds of policies that anyone who asks for this bill might have in mind? For example, maybe no smoking after 11. You can't smoke in your place when it's 1 o'clock. I just say change the bill to sections. If you're a smoker, you go down that block, and you're not, you go this block. Then you won't have this crap because you're going to always have it no matter what.
It just says you have to develop this
A
policy.
smoking policy.
Yeah,
but
which
that-
means
They have to designate where smoking is prohibited on the property. So it will say that. So the community will decide where they want to prohibit smoking and where they would like to stop smoking.
And when you say prohibit smoking, you're not talking about outside of hallways. You're talking about in certain sections of the.
They decide.
Yeah, okay.
They decide.
Make-
I don't want, so what I try not to do was prescribe something
I
for
got
every community, because every community is different. And I don't know if they have a place where they all join, where they can have
Right.
smoking. So you, as a community, you as a landowner under the amendment, you decide what the policy would be.
And maybe that's something you might want to suggest to them. And it certainly would be on the cutting edge, and people would buy into it, I think, and that would cut down with everything that we're going to face.
Right.
When it comes down to this and making people adhere to it.
Yeah,
It's just an act of fertility that's not going anywhere.
yeah.
Thank you, but I'm with you. Say it again. Say it again. Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, I just have a question about, even if we give this authority that they can develop a policy where you can and cannot smoke. No one interprets this to mean that, because these are condominiums, so they're privately owned, and the person who owns the condominium, that's their private property. This bill wouldn't be construed to tell people on their private property whether they could smoke or not, right? Because I don't think you could, as a matter of law, begin to do that to people that I'm aware of, not on their private property. Is that your understanding?
So if it's a condo, then, they'll have their own bylaws and rules that the owners have to follow. So presumably a condo association could make a rule that said as a condition of living here, you can't, smoke on your property.
But are you aware that I mean, I'm in the privacy of my own home. And let me think of something that's, I don't want to be too outrageous. That I'd like to dance in a hula skirt while watching a video of Wham. So that's what I want to do in my condominium. So you're telling me under current law, and this, and the concept here that the condominium co-op, whatever, could vote, that's not what I can do in the confines of the four walls of my private property?
Well, I believe that's the current law, and the condos, they have shared common elements, they have shared walls, shared spaces. And so I think my understanding of the law is that they would be able to include a provision like that that would affect other
They can say you can't walk.
owners.
So you can prescribe currently under current law, you can prescribe conduct that's not visible to anybody in the four walls of my private property condominium. You can prescribe my daily conduct under the law.
I mean, I think smoking would fall under conduct that they can prescribe, but maybe more private, specific items they wouldn't be able to. I mean, maybe you have.
I'm gonna
certain
beg to differ with
issues.
you on that a little bit. I'm not sure that you can prescribe, even in a condominium, what people can do inside the four walls of their private property.
The only reason I tend to
they
agree
own.
with you is because unless it's like a nuisance, then
Yes.
it's really like if I want to walk around with socks and whatever and a funny hat in my apartment, then in my condo, then I can do that.
And I
But-
could also smell bad.
Yeah, that's what,
And
unless it rises to the level of a nuisance where,
Right.
yeah, there you go. But
yeah, I don't want us to
well, the smoking is probably a nuisance, but then why not? I know, but I don't know. I don't know the answer. What?
Like loud music.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want your neighbor to be in the confines of her apartment, her condo, to be playing music so loud you couldn't get sleep at night.
Well, what if I wanted to cook something and I like to cook liver and I like to do it 3 times a week. And
Oh, my.
The two band chitlins.
Well, I didn't mention chitlins now, just sticking with liver. But
I didn't want that on the record.
I am a little worried about that. I would like to know the answer to that question because I don't believe that's true, but if you're telling me it is, then I'd like to. I'm just not aware that you can, because in other words, I think what the bill would be doing is developing a policy that would be consistent with private property ownership. That, in other words, they could develop policies that don't infringe on private property rights, if they, right?
Something, yeah.
But I don't know, so.
Is smoking all, it's an answer, is smoking already like, because that is like a nuisance, like, I don't think it is.
Say it again.
Is it already folded in, as a, and so if you're saying, like, if you're saying you have to develop a policy about this nuisance. Right. I would have to be under a public. I don't know the answer to any of these questions, but.
Because what if I had a really
Senator-
great, oh, sorry,
Okay.
what if I just had a really great ventilation system and was able to clean my air and I was willing to do it and I spent money? I mean, I think I'd like to have an answer.
You installed an anti-hotboxing system into
Yeah.
your.
And then there's
the
vaping and
HVAC.
there's other smoking of other
Right.
things.
All right. Specialized HVAC for cannabis.
Yeah.
All right. Senator Washington, and then, we'll go.
Assume that it wouldn't be, I think I agree with the chairman about it being a nuisance, like, we don't want them to, we're not saying they outright need to ban it. We're saying that if it affects another neighbor, your smoke affects another neighbor, they smell it, then there's actions that could be taken by the condo association. They are still, we're not setting the policy, they are. And I think if you can find, like you said, Senator, if you can find a way that it doesn't affect your neighbors, I think you'd be fine under this. I think that's the idea here, is for the communities to get together and say, hey, let's come up with a policy, just like they did for noise ordinance. We require there be a noise ordinance for condo associations and HOAs. And so that has to be created. And those are in the bylaws. And they can change it as much as they want to, because you can play your loud music. You can't play your loud music after 11 p.m. at night And then you get a knock on your door from someone that says that, you know, this is against HOA, this is against the policy, and that's in the confines of your home currently.
Bill and read it and think that, I think the bill creates the impression that they could be possibly creating policies within the confines of someone's private property. And I'm not sure that's what the law would allow. So I'm just a little worried about that.
For a rental property instead of your condo. Your own. Well, then you get away from this, I mean, because rental property is different than
That's
condo.
very different.
Yeah. I don't know. Senator Muse and then Senator Sinner.
Trying to figure out a way to get there without violating something that's I consider to be greater, and that is I own this house. This is my house. I know from the smell of cannabis, I'm driving down the street and I get high when people just drive by me. I'm like, whoa, we're gonna drive, turn left, It affects you, right? It affects you when you're on your balcony outside. Now you're outside on a balcony and the person on the balcony next door is now saying, I don't want you smoking because it's blowing it over here. I don't know where you stop. I want to help you with this bill, but I still think honestly, next year's bill is for all new construction that fit under this category, build smoking and non-smoking sections. Because people, when it's cold outside, they're not going outside to smoke. They're going right in their bathroom and they're going to turn on their ventilator and come over your bathroom. I don't know what the penalty would be. If there's a penalty, what does that mean for a homeowner who now violates that? And what is it? So I'm trying to work understanding, and I do understand both sides of it. Just trying to figure out what to do until I come back next year with my bill.
Legalizing marijuana is going to take effect in July 1, right? And people can start smoking marijuana. You buy your condo, you buy your home. The person next to you rents out their property. The leaseholder starts smoking marijuana. It affects you and your family
I
now.
understand.
Where's the policy that protects them? If you look at your package online, the committee testimony, you'll see from the Attorney General's office that he says that it's hard to defend these cases when people try to sue their neighbors. And so it's really hard to do without a policy in place right now. And so I think that this says that they just need to set a policy. We're not prescribing what the policy is. You as a community develop that policy. You as a multifamily owner develop the policy and what that is. And it does set out penalties for it too, Senator Muse.
Yes.
It does set out. It does say that they can prescribe penalties if they wanted to.
And that's my problem.
Before we toggle back over to Senator Fulton, I'm going to have the council address the smoking as a nuisance.
And would you be not anything with the bill, but if before we give everybody in all of these places the right to come up with a policy that one is as different as somebody else, if it were some kind of summer study, I'd like to work on it to do this, maybe, to make sure we build some parameters around what they can and can't do as policy and give it to them and let them work within that framework rather than all over the place. Every place is coming up with something different and you're suing for him, but you don't have to sue over here because their policy is different. And how do you address it? I don't know the answer, but that's just a suggestion.
Okay, let's go. That's right.
So I was just given a case by Senator Sidnor, Schuman v. Greenbelt Homes, that looked at smoking as a nuisance. And it said in that case, it wasn't a nuisance because the owner could go into their home, shut the doors, and they were only inconvenienced by when they were on their porch for an hour and a half every day. And so, it's probably going to be a very case specific determination as to whether the smoking rises to that level.
But then, I mean, what are the elements of nuisance? Like, what is? Can you find
And
that?
so it has to seriously interfere with the comfort and enjoyments of the average person's home. And so it's not subjective, it's an objective standard that would be determined by a reasonable person and
The reason why I can
own the
see the
situation.
need for the bill is, I mean, like you said, January 1, we're gonna legalize recreational cannabis. And like, what if you're sitting there and like you're constantly smelling cannabis just it's just constant. It's every night. Like that is a nuisance.
Should have been educated a little before they voted. Be careful what you ask for.
All right.
Privacy of your own home. And I do not believe that condominium law says that you lose those rights within the confines of the four walls of your home. That's
Right,
what I think.
just to the extent it's not determined to be a
Well,
nuisance.
right, I
But-
totally get it.
But a persistent smell emanating from that condo unit next door, if it's like overwhelming and it rises to the level of a nuisance, which it in theory could,
It could.
like, you know, that's where I see that it's kind of, it's shrouded in smoke and clouds and gray. All right, go ahead, Senator Sidor.
The nuisance.
Just to address the comment earlier, and I'm reading from Ballard Spar, they took the case and just wrote something about it. And to your point, and this is what it says: increasingly, condominiums are grappling with what to do when one unit owner complains about the smoking of a neighbor. Smoking within a residential unit is legal conduct and for most condominiums permitted by governing documents. Nonetheless, the transmission of smoke odors between units can be unpleasant and potentially could result in property damage or negative health implications. Although the court found that there was no nuisance in this case, it pointed out the steps taken by the cooperative association to address the complaints, including sealing cracks and determining that the existing rules permit smoking. In light of this recent, and this case is from 2013, in light of this recent Maryland decision, it is important for associations to be aware of any smoking provisions in their governing documents and to address any related complaints within their scope of authority. So they're not saying that they can't regulate it, although it's still with they can, but
That is inside the four walls of their property though. I think that's the law. I mean, I'm just pretty sure it is. I've had cases, but I haven't had a smoking case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I've just been waiting patiently, keep getting, this is a couple times today. I'm following a pattern now. Good. So contrary, I heard what you're saying, Senator Washington, but this does allow them to create a standard and or a prohibition by the way I read this. And I know you're saying that it's not like necessarily that way, but it does give them the ability to create this prohibition. Where I'm kind of looking at it from is through the wisdom that was passed of legalizing this, there's a component to this which gives protections under the ADA, and that is, I've disagreed all along about ingesting a carcinogen where a doctor feels that's healthy versus having something that's a standardized pill or oil or something that's done by percentages and proper manufacturing processes. But we decided to pass it that you can smoke to feel better without a filter, but it should cover them under ADA. So I don't know how you can get around the ADA on this, regardless of what we say, because they're allowed to smoke, and that would be violating their protections.
That supersedes ADA.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
This policy potentially would do that, because
No, it
if I smoke marijuana because I have PTSD and I want to be able to relax in the confines of my own home, this bill would say that I can't, but that's a
Yeah.
violation. You can't tell somebody under ADA provisions that they have to vacate their home, go down the street and smoke when it's a legal act now. That's the point. It's a legal act.
No, I don't know if that's, I gotta tell you, just because it's still Schedule I, I don't, even though it's, if you're a medical cannabis patient, the same employment protections do not apply.
No, they don't.
So I mean, like if you're a CDL driver, you need those federal licenses.
If you're in the
If
service.
you're in the
federal
military,
government.
you can't ingest.
Correct.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure you're under the cover of the ADA, even if you're a medical cannabis patient, is what I'm saying.
Well, why wouldn't you be? Because it's illegal to ingest, it's illegal to do opioids if you do them, but they're a scheduled drug, but you
No, but
can't-
if it's prescribed.
but it's prescribed. But if they're prescribed,
they're-
you can't prohibit
There are
somebody.
federal legal protections for for those drugs.
But they're
Not for
still
cannabis.
illegal
No, they're legal in that sense because they're federal
because they're
protection.
scheduled.
Even though they're on the schedule, it's still, there are there are federal protections for that. Cannabis is still in this weird space. Like we're just, and you still can't operate, you know, motor vehicles and heavy machinery and all that stuff too. I mean, so.
Because maybe it's something, some sentence to give them guidance, like what you just said, this is already the law. So maybe to give meaning to within the scope, can't do that? That's what I'm asking. I mean,
It's probably already written. in the
'Cause-
condo law with this.
okay, so because I said that based on what you just read.
Right. Just so we get the amendment.
So I'm gonna write with it now.
I think we are waiting.
I got you.
We're literally screening the email for the amendment. So let's hold for the amendment. We'll come back to it.
All right.
All right, move on. Jamie, are you up and running on, all right, let's go to Senate Bill 57. That's a voting list 21.
We just added that. That was just added. It's not on your list.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, it is on your list.
So Senate Bill 57, this is the bill on lifetime supervision for certain sex offenses. At the last voting session where the committee took this up, the committee had adopted an amendment that would have conformed the bill to House Bill 164. So I'll just explain what that bill does and, you know, what the amendment that the committee had adopted does. So it expands the definition of a crime of violence under 14-101 of the criminal article to include sex abuse of a minor that meets specified criteria. And it also expands the list of offenses that subject an offender to lifetime sex offender supervision to include sex abuse of a minor and all circumstances of second-degree sex offense. And an attempt to commit second-degree sex offense as that crime existed before October 1st, 2017, when committed by an adult. The bill applies prospectively to a conviction on or after the bill's October 1st, 2023 effective date. No further amendments.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion for a favorable and seconded. Senator Sidnor has a question.
I had a
Senate Bill
conversation with
57.
Senator Bailey earlier, and he what he had shared with me, because I think one of the conversations or the questions I had earlier was, what do we mean by lifetime? And he said, remember we had this conversation last year, and he said lifetime in this purpose means 5 years. So with that, yeah.
No.
I wasn't gonna ask any questions, but Senator Zinder opened the door. I can support the bill except for one thing, I believe. The bill is lifetime supervision. I think it's disingenuous to say lifetime means 5 years. It's lifetime, and then you can apply in 5 years. It's not the same thing as 5 years. If it was 5 years, it'd be 5 years. It's lifetime. Because the bill includes attempts at second degree, I think lifetime supervision is too severe for an attempt at a second degree. If we could remove attempts, I could support the bill, but otherwise, I don't think I can do that.
If you're looking at the House bill, might be easier because I don't know if everybody has their reprint from last week, but if you're looking at the House bill, and that's House Bill 164, if you look at page 5 between lines 1 and 5, or excuse me, Right, line 4. So an attempt to commit a violation of 3306 of the criminal article, that's the sex offense violation, second degree sex offense violation. Currently, an attempt to commit the second degree sex offense violation, if it is part of the second degree sex offense violation, so it requires lifetime supervision. So current lifetime supervisees would include people who attempted to commit second degree sex offense because they engaged in a sexual act with another by force, threat of force, or without the consent of the other, or if the victim was substantially cognitively impaired, a mentally incapacitated individual, physically helpless individual, and the person performing the act knew or reasonably should know that the victim is cognitively impaired, mentally incapacitated, or physically helpless. So what this does is it adds to that list somebody who attempted to commit second degree sex offense because the victim is under the age of 14 and the person performing the act is at least 4 years older than the victim. There's also another age-related provision in second degree sex offense.
Yeah, it could be less. It could be, 13, I guess, when this is scenario, 13 and 17, 13, 18, and 18-year-old, you know.
Something deplorable, pushes a 13-year-old down on the floor and gets on top of her and attempts to do more. She manages to get out of it. I think that encompasses it. I think that's terrible, but I don't think lifetime supervision would be warranted.
But I think to the point that Senator
Sidner was raised as lifetime supervision would be reassessed after 5 years. And that reassessment would, so it's not necessarily granted, but if in the facts that were outlined by Senator Carter, I think that if this person doesn't have then a repeated history of continued behavior, which they often do, if we don't have high penalties, right, then I think that it would likely be granted. But tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if we have data that says that those requests after 5 years are not granted for incidences that were youthful indiscretions of an 18-year-old sexually attacking a 13-year-old.
Look, let's get the jury instruction for attempt, but I personally, I'm going to vote against removing attempt personally, but whenever Jamie's ready, we'll go with it.
Including attempts for a lifetime supervision. I understand that you think the person could possibly be a repeat offender, but if the person is relatively young, I think there's a substantial prison sentence that they would face. And keep in mind, this is after the prison sentence is served and then for life. And yes, they can petition. I just don't know that as a matter of policy, to me, that remedy seems, or that penalty seems too severe for the circumstance. Again, there's plenty of awful things and we don't say you're under the supervision of the court for life. It's a lot. Attempt is too far.
So So having never been involved in any of these cases, as a lawyer representing anybody, Senator Carter, what if a petition is filed, the court makes the decision, right, based on all the facts? Hello? Okay, the court makes the decision based on all the facts, correct?
Hey,
And then how long does the petitioner, if he loses the petition, how long does he have to wait until he can file another petition?
I think it's probably up in 5 years, but I don't know for sure. But let me say this,
all right, let me just do.
there's no problem with having it extended. Rather than say lifetime supervision and then you can petition to have it lessened. To me, that's backwards.
Kelly. And then we're gonna pull this because we gotta vote. Look, I have a hard out at 4:45. We gotta vote these Senate bills. Just vote it, just run it. All right. we're just
Then, so we're gonna hold a vote? I
No,
just
we're
would
gonna
like,
run the vote. yeah,
okay,
yeah.
because I would just like to say that an attempted second degree rape means that the person intended to rape a child and that the child evaded that does not mean that they should have a less harsh penalty, in my opinion. Thank you.
Or something out of their control frustrated the attempt and yeah, so like, yeah, but anyway, all right. So there's been a motion for a favorable, it's been seconded. Let's do we need to do a roll call? We're gonna do a roll call.
Vice Chair Waldstreicher is not back yet. Senator Sidnor,
Yes.
Senator West,
Yes.
Senator Muse,
No, in explaining my vote, I voted for almost all bills that deal with, an affirmative for bills that deal with this. This one is too broad. It goes too far and I can't support.
Senator Fulton,
Yes.
Senator James,
Yes.
Senator Washington,
Yes.
Senator Kelly,
Yes.
Senator McKay,
Yes.
Senator Carter,
No.
Chairman Smith,
Yes. So the bill passes with amendments
8-2.
8-2. All right, now we're gonna, we're waiting for the amendment for Senate Bill 817, but we need to move on to House bills. So we're gonna go switch over to voting list number 17. And we're gonna go with House Bill 13 first. And that's Shamari. Sorry.
So House Bill 13 was cross-filed with Senate Bill 5. And it authorizes a person who is a victim of an act that would constitute a violation of the state's hate crime laws to bring a civil action against the person or persons who committed the act, and authorizes a court to award a variety of specified remedies.
Did we pass this bill unanimously?
Yes.
Is this different than the House bill?
It is identical.
Okay, so move favorable second, everyone, okay, being recorded in the affirmative. Excellent. Thank you. All right, let's move on to Senate. This is you again. Senate Bill, or House Bill 18.
House Bill 18 was cross-filed with Senate Bill 851. And it amends the Maryland statutory form personal financial power of attorney by, among other things, granting an agent additional authority to take action on the principal's behalf, adding a warning to the principal about the potential effects of authority granted to the agents, and adding information for the agent about the agent's duties to the principal. The bill amends both the Maryland statutory form personal financial power of attorney and the Maryland statutory form limited power of attorney to include specified authorization for an agent to perform the necessary acts to enable the principal to qualify for a governmental benefit or program. The bill also makes related changes to a specified grant of authority and optional grants of a specific authority in the Maryland statutory form limited power of attorney regarding gifts and transfers and the creation and funding of specified trusts or accounts. It's identical. There's formatting differences that made it look like it was different, but it's just the statutory form has more underlines that are bolded. It was unanimous in this.
Second, right, so just in the future, if something is unanimous, it's unanimous and it's second, it's identical. We're just. All right, so motions were favorable. It's been seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative as you were on the Senate bill? Excellent. All right, we're now going to go on to House. So House Bill 18 passes unanimously. Let's go on to House Bill 66.
So this bill was cross-filed with Senate Bill 99. It was not unanimous. It was 37-6 in the Senate. And it
What was it?
increases from $10 to $30 the amount of service charge that may be imposed by a circuit court or district court for a dishonor check. No,
What
no.
was the vote?
I want to say it was 10-1. I believe Senator Folden voted no.
Okay. Yeah, the motion to conform, does everyone like to be recorded in the same posture that you were? Okay, so there's a motion for a favorable. Everyone's gonna be recorded. Senator Folden was down, everyone else is up. House Bill 66 passes. All right. Josh, you're up with Delegate Watson.
House Bill 7-2 is the cross file of Senate Bill 254, which passed the Senate unanimously. The bill alters the definition of charitable
I
contribution.
remember this. This is this
And-
Hester's bill?
Yeah, so
Okay.
there is a minor difference between the two. The Senate bill includes a couple qualifications for an organization to be allowed to submit documents in lieu of a audit or review. I think specifically in the Senate bill, the organization would have to solicit primarily in-kind contributions, and there would be a limit on the total amount of donations they receive in order to qualify for that.
I want to defer to our resident expert, Senator Sidnor. Do you want to conform to the House or you want to stay and go to conference?
You know, we would conform the House bill to the Senate bill. Okay. I haven't been talking to the sponsor about that,
Okay.
so.
So motion is to conform the House bill to the Senate bill. Is everyone okay with that? All right, so now we've voted to conform House Bill 72 to Senate Bill 254, is that right?
Correct.
Excellent. All right, move on. House Bill 9, we passed it, yes. House Bill 98, and that's Shamari again.
House Bill 98 was a cross file with Senate Bill 403. Senate Bill 403 passed without amendments unanimously. The House bill had amendments on it. This committee considered the amendments and rejected the amendments and passed the bill 403 as is.
Want to conform the House to the Senate? Did it pass unanimously?
Senate bill did pass unanimously.
All right, motions conform the House bill to the Senate bill. Is everyone okay with recording the affirmative? All right, excellent. Bill passes. All right, now we're going to go to Shamari one more time to House Bill 118.
So House Bill 118, this bill was a cross file with Senate Bill 194, which prohibits a leasehold tenant of an unregistered ground lease from being required to hold more than 3 years of ground rent in escrow, requiring a ground lease holder to mail certain copies of notices or bills. There was an amendment that the House put on the bill. It made clarifying changes to the form that the State Department of Assessment and Taxation has to put on their website. The way the Senate bill was written was that it was somewhat unclear as to whether the department could post any form. And so what the House bill did, it just made that form standardized.
If I'm not mistaken, I think I remember the department must have had something to do with that amendment, so I think we should be conforming ours to the House and accepting that their version rather than ours.
Can we call?
So we just pass it then. Because they have the Senate version, right?
Yeah.
So then they'll just amend ours to, yeah.
Motion for favorable has been seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? All right. House Bill 118 passes unanimously. Now we'll go to Jamie with House Bill 131.
House Bill 131 repeals the common law offense of unnatural or perverted sex practices. It is identical to SB 54, which was passed 34-11 by the Senate.
But it was passed unanimously in the committee.
I have to check the committee vote. It was 34-11 in the Senate. In the committee, just pulling that up right now, it was 10-0.
Is everyone, motions for favorable, is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? Or the way you were last time?
So Senator Kelly wasn't here. Which one?
No, you were up on this.
I don't know, but you gotta tell me, I mean, you were. So you have to tell me how you wanna vote.
You want to? All right. Anyone else? You down? Okay, good. Senator Kelly, you're up. Okay. All right, so
And the
Bill,
motion's favorable. right?
motions were favorable. Bill passes what? 9-1. 9-1, okay. We'll now move on to House Bill 189.
House Bill 189 is automatic expungement clarification. It's the cross-file to Senator Waldstreicher's Senate version, which is Senate Bill 173. The bills are not in identical postures. The House made an additional conforming change about notice to defendants about expungement sooner than 3 years. So it's the same technical change was being made or clarification was being made just to an additional part of the law.
Okay, excellent. All right, motions were favorable. It's been seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? Awesome. All right, now we'll go on to Josh, House Bill 193.
House Bill 193 is identical to Senate Bill 211, which passed the committee unanimously and 41-4 on the floor. The bill creates an alternative procedure for probation before judgment.
Motions were favorable. It's been seconded. Is everyone okay? Wait. Okay, got it. 1 second.
Got it.
All right, so bill passes 9-1.
Yep.
Excellent, okay. We'll now move on to House Bill 207.
Was cross-filed with Senate Bill 291. As amended, both versions are identical. Senate Bill 291 was 3511 on the Senate floor. This bill dealt with recreational facilities and prohibited provisions in contracts with indemnity.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna hold
clauses.
this, bill. Yep. All right. All right. Hold it for, they had the hearing today in the House, so I'm gonna hold it for. Okay,
I still think it went our way, so.
okay, I'm just gonna hold it for one, just till tomorrow. That was 207. Let us go to Shamari one more time, House Bill 215.
House Bill 215 prohibits a landlord from using, including provisions in a lease that limit a tenant's ability to summon law enforcement. It was cross-filed with Senate Bill 450. It's identical, and it was 45-1 in the Senate floor.
Motions for favorable, it's been seconded. Is everyone okay with being recorded in the affirmative? Excellent. All right, it's House Bill 226. That's Jamie.
So House Bill 226, this is a person in position of authority. The House version redefined a person in position of authority. It meets criteria that it's still a person who's at least 21, works in certain organizations, exercises supervision of or interacts with minors who are participating in that organization. I do want to note for the committee that I spoke with Claire Rossmark earlier today. She had pointed out to me that there were actually technical aspects with both the House and the Senate version that would need a correction. So just wanted to flag that the amendment is still being worked on.
Okay, so we'll hold it until tomorrow. Excellent. So we'll move on to House.
There are two prohibitions for a person with position of authority. In the Senate version, and I believe, I'm not sure if it got corrected in the House version, but in the Senate version at least, there was a issue where the term vaginal intercourse was added to the wrong prohibition. So it already exists in code, but it was added additionally. It creates just a problem with the cross
Because the
reference.
intent of the bill, so we already voted on the or the Senate version. So why can't we just move it and have the,
They're gonna do the same conforming changes on the House side presumably, right?
Well, I mean, so it's up to the committee as far as what the Senate had done was actually raise the age for the non-school employees. So for other persons who are in a position of authority, I believe it's set at 26.
so it's gonna end up in conference committee anyways. Why can't we move their bill?
We're gonna hold it until tomorrow. We'll vote it first. That'll be the first on the list tomorrow. All right. That'll end the voting session for today. And
In the House, when that bill goes to the House.
Yep.